Good morning, everybody. My name is Kimberly Tommy. I am the curator at the Marpeng and Stagfontein Official Visitor Centers in the Cradle of Humankind UNESCO World Heritage Site. I'm so privileged today to be joined by a few of my colleagues and more so my friends in paleo sciences to discuss some of the challenges that we're facing as we are celebrating Youth Day and commemorating the struggle for education in South Africa. And this is an ongoing struggle. It's something we are still facing today. I think we've seen this through Fees Must Fall and Roads Must Fall. And these are pressing issues that we need to address in order to build our youth capacity in this country. So I'm extremely proud to introduce my guests today. If you could all just turn your cameras on so people could see your faces. Wonderful. I'll just be doing a very short introduction of these wonderful people. First of all, we have Ms. Nompomolo Maringa, Yuyamiko Mpumi, and she is one of the most hardworking people I think I've ever been fortunate to come across. Mpumi recently obtained her MSc in Archaeology at Wits University, and she's one of those people with this amazing ability to work with the smallest bones I've ever come across, tiny fragments called microfaunal remains, which essentially help us to understand sites a lot better. While pursuing her postgraduate qualifications, Mpumi was a mentor for undergrads and postgraduate students, and she also worked at the Origins Museum as a tour guide. As a mentor, she would teach and motivate undergraduate and postgraduate students about their career choices and skills advancements. That is something that she still does today in the various roles that she currently holds. She's currently the SADC representative for the Association of Southern African Professional Archaeologists, or ASAPA, where she forges and reinforces connections with researchers from across the continent. She's a shadow council member for the Southern African Archaeological Student Council, where she works with teams of researchers who facilitate projects that prompt engagement between people and provide networking opportunities and career advancement skills in the fields of heritage and archaeology for tertiary students. She aims to collaborate with archaeologists, heritage practitioners, and the public to share the importance of working together to unravel the wealth of knowledge embedded in African cultures. If that isn't the most beautiful sentence I think I've read today, that's stunning, Mpumi. She brings people together from different African countries to work on projects and initiatives that will empower and improve their experiences in academia and public spaces. She's actively involved in organizing conferences and workshops for archaeologists, heritage practitioners, and the public. I was actually fortunate to be someone interviewed in one of these workshops that she's currently working on just last week. So thank you, Mpumi, for joining us. Our next guest is Rosa Matsilen. Rosa is a PhD candidate at the University of the Witwatersrand, where she received her MSc with distinction, focusing on lithic analysis with a significant excavation component. Yeah, Rosa is one of those people that you can always find in the field. She is not afraid of dirt. She is not afraid of hard work. And it's something I truly admire because and Tumi knows this, I am terrible at field work. Her current research focuses on comparative analyses of early Stone Age assemblages from both Southern and Eastern Africa. She aims to use this archaeological material to understand regional stone tool variation, which can help infer social and behavioral patterns in early hominids. She's had the opportunity to work in multiple countries, including South Africa, Tanzania, France, and Spain. Along with her extensive fieldwork experience, she has previously also been part of the Southern African Archaeological Student Council and has participated in many international conferences. She hopes to be part of advancement of equity in both the scientific community and the general public, and is optimistic about the promotion of archaeological research across the African continent for the benefit of all Africans. Thank you, Rosa. And our final guest and our only man on the agenda today is Mr. Tumelo Rufus Molefiane. Tumi is a fossil technician at the University of the Witwatersrand, and I think most people who have worked on fossil sites in South Africa have somehow worked with Tumi in some capacity. His career began in 2015, and he's gone on to excavate prominent local and international sites, working with a variety of researchers from all over the world. Tumi has an incredible knowledge of archaeology and paleontology, and he is very modest about it, but he could probably identify a bone quicker than any of us could. He is particularly gifted at bone identification, although he is also an explorer, a fossil preparator, and he is meticulous with what he does on a site. I can vouch for that because I have gone out with him. In 2017, he traveled to France, where he worked on a month-long excavation with French colleagues. And furthermore, he's also part of the Association of Southern African Professional Archaeologists. So as you can see, I am in fantastic company today. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. I just wanted to ask the first question. Obviously, we gathered here to talk about Youth Day. And just before we started this live, Mpumi, you were saying that you're actually putting together something about Youth Day for one of the committees you sit on. What does Youth Day mean to you?
Well, thank you for the introductions and hello to everybody. To me, Youth Day means a lot of things, but what I can say, it means empowerment. It shows that we can take what we believe in and we can put that out there. We know that we have similarities. We know that other people have the same ideas and they're going through the same treatments. So we don't have to be taken for granted. We can take power into our own hands and put it forward and lead the future. So that's what it means to me.
Rosa, do you have any thoughts on what Youth Day means to you?
Well, following on what Mpumi said, it's about reinforcing the idea that the future generations, we can't just talk about what is beneficial to them, we have to act on it, because what we do now affects them, and what we accomplish and set in place will only help them. So by taking that as something that to be valued, we're valuing all humans because we're valuing our future generations. And that's why it's so important to me.
I completely agree with what both of you are saying, especially in the sense of, I often sometimes feel like people undermine young people. They think we don't know things, or we aren't politically aware or socially connected, and that, you know, we don't have the necessary experience because we don't have age on our side, that we can't participate in conversations about what would potentially affect us. To me, what does Youth Day mean to you? To me, you're muted.
Sorry, this day for me, it means that we should keep striving for freedom and fairness. We should keep looking for good things for our future. And yeah, actually, that is what it means to me. Yes.
I completely agree.
Striving for freedom and education mostly, because that was some of the reasons why what happened in June 16, 1976. So it was because of the education and what the youth were fighting for. So we should keep on fighting, striving for freedom and the good things amongst our youth.
I love what you said about freedom, because it's tied so closely almost to access to education, right? Like, you know, we've been told growing up, if you go to school or if you continue to varsity and you get a degree, you know, that it will open up doors for you. But we need to look at like the reality of it, because we see students are struggling with funding or struggling with access to education. So those are challenges that really haven't changed much since 1976, if we think about it. There's still these pressing challenges. I wanted to also find out from you, Tumi. So you said you began your career in 2015, right?
Yes.
How does one get into what you got into? How did you hear about being a preparator or working with fossils? How did you come across this?
To be honest, I was by 2013, 2014, 2015, I was studying electrical engineering. But but I got interested in paleoscience, you see. So I worked with, Ian McKay and Amanda. So I went to Renshaw for the exhibition and all stuff. So I got interested in it. Then I asked them that how can I come and learn about this? Then they said, okay, you can come to ESI and then they will show you this and how we prepare and all stuff. Then I came and then I started as a volunteer. I volunteered, then I got more interested with this. I studied with the honor students to do osteology. And then after that, I was doing well. And that's where I am today. I'm still in this since I started by volunteering. Then at the end, I was working as a fossil preparator until today.
Jeez, what a journey. I mean, to have studied something so completely different and
Yes.
then to end up here is quite amazing.
And then for me, I don't think I will continue with engineering. So that's why now I'm this year in July, I'm gonna register with UNISA for archaeology so that I can forget about engineering and continue with archaeology.
That makes me happy. That makes me happy because anyone who's worked with you knows how talented you are. Firstly, you are very good at what you do. Stop underselling yourself. You're brilliant. You're brilliant at what you do. And also the passion is always there with you. Like you are excited to do it. You're very patient with people because you've tried to teach me things as well. And we know I'm not the best at that, but it's so nice to hear that you fell into something you were really passionate about, and now you are working to uplift and upskill yourself in this profession.
Yes.
Wonderful.
And I've done
Mpumi, how did you? Sorry to me, yeah.
And I've done few courses with this and with a lot of researchers. I've studied I've studied A's with a researcher from Italy. So I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot through paleoscience. So that's why I want to continue my career with archaeology or anything.
Oh, that makes me happy to me. And we're going to check back in on this to see how you're doing. How's exams treating you? Mpumi and Rosa, you guys are in the, how can I put it? The traditional academic sense of what it means to be an archaeologist. But what has your experience been, and how did you end up studying archaeology? Is it like I always loved Jurassic Park, but I know archaeologists, and don't let people fight with me here because archaeology does not include dinosaurs, but I'm saying, how did you come into the field that you are currently in?
Do you want to go first, Mpumi?
Okay, thank you, Rosa. I would say it was Jurassic Park per se, but I feel like because we would always have to have a balance between watching cartoons and also documentaries, because my parents would love to watch documentaries, you kind of fall into that. And now when you see all the explorations that they go on, mostly National Geographic, and obviously Egypt was the one that was mostly shown about archaeology and stuff. So here I am, young me, thinking we don't have archaeology here because we don't have permits. So I just enjoyed it. I've always followed it, but it never clicked like, hey, actually we do have archaeology. And I think from when, I think it was only when I got into tertiary, when I was choosing my subjects, and it's just like, there's archaeology. I'm like, what? Really? Okay, let me just give it a shot. And I never thought I'd actually go this far with archaeology. And I'm just happy about that because it's something that I love. It's something that I enjoy so much. And I just want to make sure that everybody else gets the same exposure and knows that we have archaeology, and there are archaeologists in South Africa and also in Africa as well. So it's not the best linear journey of, I started liking this and dinosaurs and all that, but it started somewhere.
I love that. I love that because I share that with you. I loved Egypt and Egyptology, and I watched so many documentaries as a child, like you said, because my parents would be like, it's enough of the cartoons, put something more substantial on. But it's exactly what you're saying. I would see these documentaries and I wouldn't recognize an African accent, or I wouldn't see Black people. I would just see, you know, European researchers that were doing work in Egypt. So I also never ever thought to myself, well, this looks like a fun job. And I mean, I grew up with a family that only, you know, you're going to be a teacher or a medical doctor or a lawyer or an accountant. And that's as far as it goes. So it's always nice to hear these stories, because I think it's good that people realize you didn't have to have it figured out by the time you were born. Like, oh, okay, I knew I was going to be a paleontologist. It's okay to, you know, move into that. It's okay to have different stages in your life where you're maybe pursuing different interests. So I think it is good that people realize it's not just there's one way of kind of navigating the space. Rosa, can you tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you got into this?
So I also had I never as a kid was thinking, oh, I want to be specifically an archaeologist, but I always loved history growing up. And I had parents who were very encouraging of kind of learning and, you know, being very involved in learning about our passions. And as with my father also specifically, he's very interested in evolution. And so when I started university, I also was like, well, I don't really know what I want to do, but I'm very interested in doing archaeology. I visited sites and I just loved it. And so I was fascinated in kind of studying it more. And then just as I did it, I just found a deep love as I was studying it. And over like the course of my undergrad, things just clicked for me about how amazing it is, because you're studying you're studying human history from a different perspective. You're looking at kind of, and specifically the further back in time, you're looking at kind of like the origins of how we made technology that defines us today. So it's like, where did that all begin? And that is quite a powerful thing, because yeah, it's very humbling in the sense that there is so much history. And also, and to reinforce what like Mpumi said, and to me, it's like we, and you as well, we never really had that growing up of understanding what specifically Africa as a continent and South Africa as a country, what kind of rich history it has. We always kind of knew, but we never knew the full extent. And that's quite an amazing thing to be part of. And yeah, so I came in, yeah, so it was through studying it in undergrad as a subject that I just thought was interesting that I realized this is what I want to do. And yeah, that's how I got into it.
I think this is a perfect lead into my next question, which is oftentimes people say, you know, why should funding go towards archaeology? Why should funding go towards paleontology? What's the relevance of the past, you know, now? Why do we need to understand that? And I think it's a valid question when you look at the current challenges we face as a country in terms of, you know, sanitation, access to education. You know, there's just so much that I think directly impact people living today that it's almost like there can't be a justification for why we would focus on the past. But I'm putting this to any of you to answer. Why do you think that archaeology is still important, or paleontology is important today in a South African context?
Well, just to start saying, it's like in the end, as I agree with you, it's really hard to come to someone and be like, we see that you have needs and challenges right now, and I can't meet that exactly with my research. But archaeology and paleosciences is a long-term benefit to the country, and it's a long-term benefit to people and education. And that's where we need to talk about the importance of the field. So we can't come in and say, oh, we're the most important, because obviously no one is. But in the long term, we needed to think about how we can affect education, how we can affect kind of future populations, because what we're doing now might be taught in schools in 10 years' time, 20 years' time. And that's where you have to reinforce kind of the importance of what we do. You know, what we do is a passion project for us, but we care about how it affects people.
Yeah, thanks. If I just may add to that what Rosa has said, we have come from a long line. We didn't just exist and just be like, oh, hey, we know how to do these things. It was a long process of development and advancement. And we trying to find out how did that lead up to where we are now. So, I mean, there's been thousands of years of humans, so there's a lot to unpack and there's only a few of us. So we're trying to do what we can. And it's understandable why archaeology and paleoscience is like a slow moving process, and people like want answers now and they want definite answers now, but we can't always have definite answers. So it just works together slowly as we get like people to come forward to know more about what we do. And it's also our job to inform people of what we do so they can identify with that. And speaking of identity, when we archaeologists go and do our research, we bring information that helps people identify with the people before us. So we know more about culture and heritage. That's in that same way, we know more about how humans developed. So that's how it's important to us. It, as Rosa said, we can't set ourselves above anything else like medicine or other technology. But the nice thing about archaeology and paleoscience is it's a very interdisciplinary subject, and we're always working with people. There's always different ways to find answers, and there's always better answers as time goes on.
I completely agree with what both of you said. And I think something that's become so increasingly important is that now we have a lot more African researchers coming into these spaces, and we're able to now almost own that narrative and kind of dictate the way we'd like to be framed, the way we'd like our communities to be framed, the way we'd like our history and heritage to be showcased to the world. Because in the past, obviously, there was a lot of helicopter research. It's still ongoing, where we have a lot of Americans or foreigners that come in and work on the site, and we weren't prioritizing local skills development or local interest in archaeology to take up these positions. This brings me to my next question, which to me is for you specifically. What is it like to be a technician in the paleosciences? Do you think that you receive adequate support? Do you think that technicians are adequately recognized for their contributions? You must unmute.
Yes, we sometimes get support, not always. It depends with researchers. So there's researchers who are willing to teach technicians about paleoscience, a lot more about paleoscience, not rather knowing to cast, to prepare, only going to the field, but to take you on the classes like osteology and some other classes with some students. But it's very rare. Like now, I've done my osteology in 2017. Then since then, no one has went to the class and learn about osteology anymore. And we have new technicians who I think they should go and learn more about osteology or other things. And some of the technicians, they don't even go to the field works, you see. So I think as technicians, we still need more learning. We need more learning, but that is based on our researchers. You see. But for me, because I know a lot of researchers and who are willing to work with me, that's why I can go there and there. But for my other technicians, I think they still need to learn more.
I agree with you. It needs to be, I think there's been a big shift, and people have been talking about, again, but people talk and it's a matter of implementing what we talk about, right? which is that technicians are a pivotal part of the scientific process. You are a scientist. You might not be an academic, but you are a scientist. And so it needs to be something that is good for everyone involved in the team. It needs to be something that benefits everyone in the team. So, and if we want you to come out to site, or if I say to me, I found a site, can you come with me? And I'm consulting your expertise, I should be, you know, in a way investing in your growth and development. So I think you're saying something really important, that it's not just a technical skill. You're not just doing something with the air scribe. You know, you have to be able to identify fossils. You have to be able to know what a bone looks like. You have to be able to distinguish, this is a bone of a mammal, this is a bone of a hominin. And those are learned skills that need investing in. Tumi, I want to ask you, you're sitting in a room that I'm trying to figure out, what are all of these boxes? What is going on here?
This is archaeological material from Sibudu. So yes, I'm behind it.
You're surrounded by
stone tools. Yes, I'm surrounded by stone tools and some bones.
You see, you can never say a day in the life of an archaeologist is boring, right? Because look at Tumi, he's sitting and he's surrounded by stone tools. Not everyone can say that in a day. Like sometimes I have to take a moment, because I'll come home and I'll just say something to my partner. I'll say, oh, well, today I was holding a 3.2 million year old fossil. And he's like, what? You do realize not everyone does this, which is really, really humbling. It's a humbling experience. But I think something I was wanting to bring up to everybody is, you know, we can't ignore the stats that were just released the other day about youth unemployment, right? So we're sitting with 75% youth unemployment in the country at the moment. What are job prospects like in the paleo sciences, whether it's as a technician or as an academic? Is there any job stability at this point in time? I mean, when I started in paleo, I was told, you know, the chances of you finding a job are slim to none. And then kind of you're sitting in class and you question, so then why am I here if I wasn't going to get a job at the end of this? So maybe Rosa and Mpumi, if you could speak to the academic side of things, what is job stability or job opportunities like in the field?
You want to go first, Mpumi? Okay, it's not easy, and it's definitely one of the big kind of hindrances to pursuing kind of like passion in terms of academic research. Especially like having a PhD is you become a very qualified individual, but you're qualified in a niche aspect, and you learn skills that you could adapt to any other field, but it's very hard to kind of break away from that kind of thinking. And that becomes really hard, especially in the sense because academic jobs are so few. So I'm speaking from the academic side of things. But yeah, you've got to kind of, it's a sense where you have to be extra, like proactive in the way that you have to kind of propose a position for yourself rather than seeking out the positions that already exist. And most of the time it's kind of, you're just waiting for something to open up rather than there's an industry with kind of people coming in and out of it. And so, it's a tough one to be in because it becomes in at the thing of like competition a lot more and hierarchy, which is not always a very pleasant environment to be in. And so going into it, especially if you're pursuing it to beyond like master's, PhD, and you want to be very much in that academic space, you have to be prepared for the kind of reality of academic life. But beyond that, if you develop skills through doing archaeological research, there's a joke that archaeology is like the dustbin of academia because, as Mpumi said, it's so multidisciplinary. We take everything from other disciplines. So we actually have a very wide set of skills when it comes to kind of project management and running sites. We have good generally we have good networking skills because we work in such diverse big teams on sites that between individual sites are so different. we adapt really easily to different situations. We're able to kind of perform in public, like perform in the sense we're able to discuss publicly, because a big part of research in academia is being able to do that scientific communication side of it. So when you do this for a passion, one of the things you have to work with is this idea that you might also have to just take your skills and adapt them to a slightly different field. And it's sad in the sense that if you want to do research, you don't get to do that, but you are able to do many things.
I don't think I could have said it better myself, Rosa, like you hit the nail on the head. But yeah, just to emphasize a little bit more, from my perspective, I was told that if I do certain things, focus my research over here, I'd be sought out like by everybody. And those are one of the things that just, it helps build you, it builds your confidence, and you're just like, wow, okay, cool. Like, there's kind of a trap if you specialize, but then it would be nice to be like the only person who does this, and you'd be in demand. So we know that there are some sides of archaeology and paleosciences that have that advantage. And then there's those other ones that do not have advantage. But as Rosa said, when you're in a research environment, you have so many skills to pick up on. You're always doing something. If you're doing analysis, you're working in a lab, you're a technician, you're running the project, you're always communicating with people. Those skills, if you actually sit down and realize what you're doing, you just be like, actually, I've got quite a few skills that I can use and I can take advantage of. And we often do have to hustle and make our own way and find jobs that we can actually propose to people and say, oh, wait, I can actually do this. And you can actually also start off as a volunteer. And as you get better, you find that you'll find employment through it. So it is a kind of a touch and go situation. Can't say it's a very stable discipline or something career to go into, but what keeps us alive is the passion that we have for it. So, and we know that at some point in time, we will get something. We know that we'll be able to find something that we enjoy and we love, and we'll be able to work with other people.
Can I just add, and I just want to say that, like, Kimmy, you're a perfect example of kind of taking skills of research, because you are a PhD candidate yourself and highly skilled research, but you've now transformed that into this curation and science communication job. And that just shows you how amazing, like, your skills are. And you're like a real testament to kind of how we can do that in the future.
Thank you, friend. That means a lot to me. I think exactly what you're saying is, my experience was also, okay, am I ever going to find a job doing this? Because it's my passion. I couldn't imagine doing something else. I couldn't imagine not looking at fossils. It's something I love doing. You can leave out field work, but don't let me look at the bones. That's what I like to do. But I found that, like you're saying, sometimes we're told there aren't opportunities, but it's kind of also that generational gap. Like the field has transformed so much, the field has changed so much that a lot of people are driving their own opportunities. So I started doing science communication on the side firstly to improve my own skills, and secondly as a source of income. And I think that that's something Mpumi and I spoke about on Friday as well when we saw each other virtually. We did discuss these kinds of workshops and things that are needed to empower people, because oftentimes we think we're so limited in what we can do because we kind of have that tunnel vision when you're in the throes of any postgraduate studies, your master's, your PhD, you just develop tunnel vision, and it's the only thing you're looking forward to is the end, and anything happening on the side is noise, and you don't actually see the value that you have. And I think that's also something that comes about because of some of the unhealthy structures of academia as it exists today, and within science as it exists today, where you feel inadequate or like an imposter. So, I mean, I'm sure everyone here can attest to suffering in some way from imposter syndrome. And that's okay. It's okay to be honest about that, and we then have to interrogate the reasons why, so we can create a healthier environment. And then if we start thinking of restructuring our environments, maybe that would lead to restructuring the way we think of employment and how we look at our colleagues. Like I don't think of technicians as anything different to scientists. You're the same. We're all doing the same thing. We're trying to figure out the same questions and find answers to things, and we're all contributing to it. So to me, is the experience any different as a technician? Like, are there a lot of jobs available as technicians? And is it stable employment?
There's not a lot of jobs as a technician, especially for paleo science. And the other thing is that there is no a qualified, recognized certificate that it's recognized. There's no certificate that is recognized by SAQA. You see, so there's no a degree that is recognized by SAQA. So if you come here, let's say here at VET, and then you start learning about being a technician, and you prepare and you do whatever, and then you get a position here, you work, and then if that a position they've run out of funding, there's no way you can go and work either than Litung or here, or maybe it's only few places where you can work. But the thing is that there's no a certificate that and besides that, I think it's okay. Besides that, I think it's okay because with researchers we're working fine, and then some of them, yes, they do include us in their researcher, in their papers, and yeah. So I think if you only get the permanent post, because sometimes we do get permanent post, like in here at VET or maybe at Iziko. Yes, if you get a permanent post, it's very rare, but if you get it, it's fine. It's a good position.
I think that those are all things we need to, actively approach as a field. But like that,
we only need a certificate that is recognized by SAFA.
And I think that's something a lot of students have been pushing for these kinds of recognition and qualifications for technicians. And with the other members of our team that are not necessarily academics, but we need that support to come from the top, because there's always going to be a power dynamic here, and we want to lead change, but we need those who sit with a little bit more power than we do to be part of initiating that change. So thank you for sharing that to me. I wanted to ask you guys, what are some of the challenges that you've faced throughout your journeys? Maybe we'll start with you, Tumi.
Oh, okay. The challenge that I faced is the transformation in different departments. Most of paleo science departments, the transformation is very, very going slow. It's very slow. And then in a way that people get very emotional, and then you end up not having a good relationship in a department. End up acting like enemies anymore, you see. So that is the difficult thing that I've experienced.
I'll get back to you on that to me, because I'm sure we have a few more thoughts on transformation in paleo sciences. Rosa or Mpumi, any of the challenges you face?
Well, just to name a few, like what Tumi has said, yes, emotions, and so also funding is a big challenge that you find. But as a person of color as well, you get treated differently, unfairly. Also, as a woman, you get treated differently and unfairly. And on top of that, your age, you get undermined for you being young and wanting to know more and add your mark into this discipline. And you find that the more seasoned researchers and archaeologists or professionals, just they don't take time. They just be like, you're not talking about anything. It has no stands. So it's a lot that we have to go through. There's a lot of challenges that we do face. So we're trying to tackle them. I know we're trying to tackle them and make sure that they don't hinder us or any of the others who are coming in, the younger ones. But we just need to stand strong. It's what I feel.
Yeah, it just, Tumi and Pumi are saying everything you need to hear. Obviously, I can't speak to being a person of color, but one of the things I've noticed is people don't listen in academia. So especially like Mpumi and Tumi wouldn't be heard as loudly as say I would in the department. And that's a very problematic thing. I can't have a higher voice just because of the color of my skin. It's not fair. It's not equality when it comes to research. And the thing that we've touched on with like imposter syndrome and these kind of like big issues that come in academia is that also it's like things that aren't addressed are like mental health issues. So obviously students of color, women, we face kind of really much tougher experiences, but even like every student, it's a really hard kind of situation to be in for your mental health. And there's almost this kind of like denial in academia that mental health issues even exist. And, I've had lots of things said to me as someone who's very open about suffering through mental health issues, that I either will never produce good work or that it's not actually a problem. And that's not a fair, you're not treating people with dignity. And so that's basically what I'm saying is there's a sense of not treating people with dignity, especially what are considered underlings. So like researchers coming up in the game who aren't established. And that's a big problem.
So yeah, it is. It's basically like disgusting behavior that happens, and it affects you greatly sometimes. And if you don't have like a good support system of people who know who you are, who are going to bring you up and tell you no, that you are more than what other people say that you are, then it's going to be really tough. But right now, with people with a community as well, a student community as well, who are more accepting of people, of any of their mental health issues, any of their physical disabilities, we should be more inclusive rather than exclusive, because we know what it's like to be marginalized. We know what it's like to be taken out and taken for granted and mistreated. So why must we continue to do it to other people? We have to fix the cycle, not continue it. We must break it and let new things come in and start fresh.
I completely agree. I think something that I've experienced in academia is someone will say, well, I went through it, so you should do, or, it's a rite of passage, like suffering is a rite of passage, or it will make you a better researcher or a stronger, more resilient researcher. And I've always found that because I've had such an exceptionally great relationship with my academic supervisors throughout my studies. They are all just the most wonderful people, that because I was nurtured with tenderness, I think that is what allowed me to excel in academia. Was I never felt like it was pressure or they didn't believe in me. Sometimes I felt like, if you believe in me a bit too much, because I'm trying not to do the most, but you keep saying you're capable of doing these things, so do it. And I mean, what Tumi brought up with issues of transformation, this is something so many of us have been vocal about for many years. It's disturbing that South Africa, the demographics of our country, is not reflected in the spaces of paleosciences. It's disturbing that it's not reflected in the spaces of archaeology. And a lot of times we look and we try to tease apart, or, maybe students aren't coming in. That's not the issue. It's not for a lack of interest. It's not for a lack of passion. It's what happens within the system that drives you out. Needs to really be something we're examining moving forward, and that applies to students. It applies to technicians. How are we treating each other? How is the current structure kind of tipping the favors for others? Historically, it's a white male dominated field. And it is that kind of, the people have this Indiana Jones impression in their minds that it's like rough and rugged, and we see all these issues that come up even with conduct in terms of sexual harassment. Archaeology, paleontology, it has a terrible history in terms of sexual assault, sexual harassment, the way women are treated at field, in field sites and at field schools, the way Black women are treated, the way Black people are treated in general and dismissed, is a big issue that needs to be addressed. But this brings me to my next question before we move on to more positive things. Do you think that at the moment enough is being done in the sense of correcting these various issues we've spoken about? And this is for anybody to answer.
If I may. No. This is just a straight answer, no. You don't even need to think about it. If enough was being done, we wouldn't be complaining or experiencing any of these issues. It's always up to us, and it's always seen that it's up to us to change, because we're the ones who see that there's something wrong. So we have to be the ones to change, and that's why we're always labeled as game changers or hustlers, because we're the ones who see the errors that are going on, and we're willing to make it right. Because if you want to change something, let's just talk about transformation. If you really want to talk about transformation and changing things and making sure that the demographic reflects properly across the board, then make the change. Do what you need to do. Don't just bring people in as if they just like, here, look, it's magic, they're here, great, we're doing something. No, that's not enough. You're not encouraging people. You're not investing in them. You're not nurturing them in the way that they need to be nurtured to be successful in the field. So we understand that, yes, the older professionals feel that we don't need to be coddled because they want to coddle. Speaking on what you have said, Kim. But you just need to assess a person, just look at a person. Does this person need to be nurtured? If not, fine. But if they do, help them, because that's what teaching is. You are there to help us. And that's what we do with mentoring. That's what I've been doing with mentoring as well. I can see that there's gaps and I try and fill the gaps. No one told me to do it. I just felt like I went through this, I need to change it. I wish there was someone who could help me. And I try and be that person of change. And it's also not great to see people being discriminated against of where they come from, what they do, what their interests are, all those things, and just who they are. It's not great. And we need to have change between us, well, change that is enforced with us and also change that is enforced with the older professionals. It needs to be a balanced equation. Thank you.
I agree with you. Like I'm saying, it's like you've just said, it can't just be the onus is on this generation coming in. The onus is on all of us sitting here, because at the end of the day, we do as much as we can, but we need support. It has to be, it's like you're doing a group project and you're the one that's doing everything at this point in time. So you kind of need other people to chip in, because it needs these different perspectives. It's not I think a lot of times when you're addressing things that people find uncomfortable, like transformation or decolonization, people get on the defensive very quickly, because that's what happens when you center yourself in it. When you are saying, my feelings take preference over a movement or something that would better an environment for more people. And that's the big issue I find is, and it's something I struggle with still today, is sometimes I want to center myself. I want to feel like, is it just happening directly to me, when it really isn't? And I think that's something that's enabled us to move beyond that, especially with this generation, is that we talk to each other a lot, a lot about challenges we're facing, about how we feel. We help each other. If someone needs something, we always have that network. We've got that community within each other, but we do need that support from those, like I said, who sit in positions of power or who are, higher than us because of their number of years of experience. Or, academia has arbitrary ways of putting value to people. And then sometimes people internalize that and you think that this is who you are. And I always try to say, and I was one of those people who thought that being a good scientist defined who I was as a person. I felt like I wasn't worth anything if I wasn't a good scientist. And I've since learned to separate that, because who I am and what I do are different. Even though I have a passion for it and I love it, it doesn't define me. If it's taken away from me, it's not going to kill me. I'm not going to be broken by it, because I know who I am and I know what value I bring. And if other people don't see that, you can't force them to. But we need to implement these changes, because generations coming in don't need that. We don't need to learn through trauma. It should be learning through healthy environments, because that's when people thrive. If you're in a good environment, a healthy environment, you're more productive, you're happier, you're living, you still have a life outside of this. And I think that that's something really important to share on especially now with people thinking, oh, the youth. And I mean, it's unfathomable to me what the youth of 1976 did, because it's just what a sacrifice, what a moment, you know. And that again speaks to this ongoing battle that we're facing. And again, it's in community that we find strength to continue the fight. So I wanted to end on a little bit of a more positive note, just to say to you guys, what is it that you see for the future of archaeology and paleontology in South Africa? Rosa, maybe you could start us off.
I like, well, I'm cynical at heart, but I like to think positively about the future of the discipline, mainly, as you said, because of the people who are currently pushing it, our generation, who are coming through. And we're not willing to sit by idly. Of course, there will be members, there will always be individuals that will challenge that, but as a collective, we seem to be stronger. And one of the most important things I think that we need, certainly in the entire continent, but in talking from a South African perspective, is that, as you said, it's dominated by white Western men who have come in and dictated history to people who live in an area, their history, their past, their identity. And that is one of the things I think that is changing, because if we're bringing in more African scholars, we are bringing in people to discover their own history, and we'll learn that actually history is not just so kind of simple, placed on paper, binary, them versus us. And that's, I think, one of the ways that's very exciting moving forward, is that actually the past will be seen in such a much more interesting, diverse way, you know, and that's much more relevant to us, I think, as modern day humans and how we function in society, versus kind of the old coming out of colonial time viewpoints.
I love what you said, Rosa. I love that it's like, this is an opportunity, like we said earlier, just to bring to the forefront African narratives, and even to ground this in our indigenous knowledge. Like, for such a long time, things were kind of grounded in Western cultures and in Western perspectives and how they interpreted who we are. And then again, slapped a value on it and said, this is what you deserve as a person. Not you because you're Black, or not you because you're a woman, or, you know, there was all of these expectations and also these standards that were dictated by people who didn't really know us or understand the land. And that's something that I think really needs to be pushed forward in paleo and archaeology, is incorporating indigenous knowledge and incorporating these perspectives, because for so long they've been ignored. And we know that there's value in our own voices and in our own way of doing things. And it doesn't necessarily have to fit. We need to stop trying to fit this mold that was kind of just imposed on us. And we need to kind of just challenge it so that we are truly doing things in an African way, from an African perspective. To me, what do you hope for the future of paleontology and archaeology?
Thank you, Kim. I'm hoping to see changes, a lot of changes, and I'm hoping to see more young people having those big positions, because we're not having transformation and changes. We're not having changes because of these old-fashioned people, you see. So they don't want to change anything. So in order to change, I think we need to have more young people having those big position to make decisions. You see, we need them, those old people, just for research and other things, but the young people to make decisions, the final decision for the department, then that will be it. For whatever that is. I think we'll have enough. We will have enough changes if we do that. Yes.
I agree to me. Let us take over. We might show people a few things, a few new things. Mpumi, any closing thoughts on you with this question?
Thank you, Kim. I feel like I'm just basically going to build on what me and Rosa have said, that we do need change. We do need the youth in power, and we need those who have direction to also be put into power to see what's going on, so we know where we're going with this. And I think we can take back from the youth of 76 that they were not afraid. They took a huge sacrifice. Even they probably didn't know it was going to end up so tragic, but they still fought. It went on for days because they knew like now this is war. And for us, I feel like we need to wage that war. Probably not the death part, but just to do more for ourselves, to voice our opinions, to not give up, to not stand down, to keep on like just persisting with this, and not just to be like, okay, no, we've got what we wanted, it's done. No, it's going to be it's a working process. We're going to need to have transformation. We're going to need to have inclusivity. We're going to need to have people who really want change, and we need to also educate ourselves. So we need to undo the mindset that we came with as well, that we were taught with. We need to break that apart, reassess what's going on, and build from that as well. Because that's also a good sign of someone who's willing to change, is knowing that there's some negative traits that you have and willing to unlearn that and relearn new traits. So I would like to say that we need to continue with that. We need to continue with those advancements. And if we continue with that way forward, it could be possible for us to have a good representation of people of color, of women, and of just people from around the world, where there will not be any power struggle or superiority or inferiority in any of the disciplines.
Thank you, Mpumi. Yeah, that's so true. I think, like you said, it's ongoing. You know, we'll rest when we're done. That's when we'll rest. You know, and I think that it's so important that we highlight not only the good, but the challenges that we're facing, because we need to deal with them. It doesn't help to, you know, sweep them under the rug. So I would just like to thank all of you, Rosa, Mpumi, Tumi, for joining us today and for providing your perspectives and your experiences. I know sometimes that's not easy to talk about, but you are valued. All of you are really, really valued. And I couldn't have thought of a better guest list for this conversation. So thank you all so much. And thank you to everybody who watched us on Facebook. We hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.